In this chapter, we found out that Rocks is actually the father of Marshall D. Teach, but that raises a ton of questions. Why hasn't Teach ever called himself Rocks D. Teach until now? Did none of the Marines who fought Rocks at God Valley ever suspect blood connection to Blackbeard? And did Whitebeard know Teach was Rocks' son when he let him on his crew? Going back through the story with this new info, I noticed a lot of new things, so in this video, I'll be breaking it all down in detail. Also, there's a slight difference in the Japanese wording between the hammer-wielding giant fleet, Galeira, and the Galera Company. It's a trick Oda Sensei uses a lot, but it often doesn't come through clearly in the translated version. That's why on this channel, I dive into the original Japanese version of One Piece, breaking down not just the plot, but also the wordplay and nuance that modern translation software still struggle with in the 21st century. So for the chapter breakdowns, stick with this channel, LunaPienArt. For deeper theories, head over to Dawn Dusk channel. And if you're looking for serious, in-depth discussions, check out my Patreon page. Now, that the intro out of the way, let's jump into the main topic. One of the biggest reveals in this chapter is that finally get to see Rock's real face. It turns out he took part in Reveille 56 years ago, and while he was there, he killed a Marine Admiral and became one of the most highly wanted men in the world. Now, in the history of piracy, no one's bounty has surpassed Roger or Blackbeard's. And keep in mind, the One Piece world has an actual economy system. They have the concept of inflation, so if we are talking about 48 years ago, bounties were probably lower across the board. That said, killing a Admiral would have been a massive deal, so I'd bet his bounty still crossed 4 billion at the time. But even bigger shock, it's now confirmed. Rocks D. Zebek is Blackbeard's father. That changes everything. It makes you want to go back and re-examine a bunch of key moments in the story, so let's break it down. First off, let's look at the connection between Blackbeard and Rocks. The Blackbeard pirates are all about taking over the world, Sekai. And that mindset, it almost definitely comes from Rocks' ideology. You can see it in the name of Teach's ship, Saber of Zebek. Now, think about this. Roger's sword was named Ace, and he gave that name his son too. So what if Saber of Zebek is the same idea? Teach was the name of Saber of Rocks. That would mean Roger's son and Rock's son ended up on the same ship and were even placed in the same second division. That kind of symmetry isn't random, it might be fate. And when you really think about it, the duel between Ace and Teach on the Banal Island, that wasn't just a personal clash, it was a showdown between the next generation of two legendary pirates. In the end, Blackbeard took down the son of the man who defeated his father. A full circle revenge, 36 years in the making. And honestly, these two might be some of the most unique members of the D clan. Ace's dad was Goldie Roger, and his mom was Portgas D. Rouge. So yeah, both of his parents were D's. Now, Teach's dad is Rocks D. Zebek, and if Marshall D is actually his mother's family name, then he might be another case of having D's on the both sides. That's a seriously strange coincidence. Of course, Blackbeard's mom hasn't officially appeared in the story yet, so we don't even know if Marshall D came from her mother or not. It's also totally possible that Teach only inherited the D from Rocks D. Zebek, or that, like Jewelry Bonnie, Blackbeard's family name is something else entirely. So honestly, we just don't know yet. By the way, Oda Sensei didn't mention Teach's mom in some of his early character design notes, which were shared in One Piece magazine. But here's the big question. If Teach went so far as to name his ship Saber of Zebek, then why hasn't he ever called himself
Rocks D. Teach?
There are two possibilities. One, Maybe he respects Rocksteady Zebek, but doesn't realize that he's actually his father. Or 2, he knows, keeping it hidden on purpose. We know that the Teach had planned to live his whole life under the Whitebeard crew in the shadows if the Yami Yami no Mi hadn't come his way. So maybe he avoided using the name like Rocksteady on purpose. Something that would put a giant world government target on his back. Another thing that really gets you thinking is how different characters have reacted to Blackbeards over time. Honestly, it feels like some of them might figure out that Teach is Rock's son. So let's go through them one at a time. First up, Whitebeard. He met Teach when he was just a little orphan hanging around the Sun Port, probably Shade Port. The biblical already revealed where Teach is from. You'd think he might notice something, like the eyes or nose that reminded him of his old captain, Rocks, right? But then again, Whitebeard didn't even realize Ace was Roger's son until Ace told him, and even after that, it didn't really change how he saw Ace. It just wasn't important to him. So even if he did realize Teach was Rock's son, I doubt it would have changed much. And remember when Ace was about to after Teach and Whitebeard tried to stop him? He said he had a bad feeling about it. That might be more than just instinct. Maybe he sensed something like Teach being connected to Rocks. And next up, Rayleigh. When he showed up at Amazon Lily to help Hancock, he referred to Blackbeard as that brat who used to be under Whitebeard. Then he straight up said, "I know it's childish, but I really don't like you." Now yeah, part of that is probably because Blackbeard gave Shanks that scar, but there's probably more to it than that. Remember, the Roger pirate clashed with the Rocks pirate at God Valley. And based on some of Roger's comments, it sounds like he and Rocks might have known each other even before that battle. So maybe Rayleigh picked up on something too. Maybe he saw in Teach the same kind of presence or danger that he once saw in Rocks. And then there's Sengoku. He was actually the first person in the One Piece manga to ever mention Rocksteady Zebek by name. Since Sengoku was already a marine 14 years ago, he definitely knows what Rocks looks like. And considering he faced Blackbeard up close during the Marineford War, there's a good chance he might start to suspect that Teach is actually Rock's son. Also, during Ace's execution, Sengoku said this: "As captain of the Spade Pirates, he rose through the sea with incredible power and speed." That's when we finally realized Roger's bloodline hadn't ended after all. Now yeah, part of the reason they tried to recruit Ace into the Seven Warlords, Shichibukai, might have been because he defeated the previous one, Hanafuda, but it also feels like the world government wanted to bring someone with Roger's blood into their ranks, or their allies, like control the threat before it comes one. And if that's true, the same logic could apply to Blackbeard. Remember 2 years ago at the Warlord meeting? Luffy just burst in and nominated Teach out of nowhere. And even though Blackbeard was a total no-name pirate at that time, they still approved him as a Shichibukai warlord. So maybe during that meeting, Luffy revealed something about Teach's bloodline, or maybe he just showed them a photo and Sengoku noticed the resemblance. He might have realized, wait, this guy's Rock-san? And decided it was safer to bring him in as a Shichibukai, warlord, than leave him roaming free, just to keep him close and under watch. This actually ties in with something Saturn said. When Devon said, "Teach is special," Saturn replied, "His bloodline too." That line alone strongly suggests they know Blackbeard is related to Rocksteady Zebek. And there's something else that stands out. Imu had Blackbeard wanted poster. Now, yeah, Both Luffy and Blackbeard being singled out could be because they are sons of leaders who openly oppose the world government, Luffy being the son of Dragon, and Blackbeard being the son of Rocksteady Zebek. But there's more to it. Luffy holds the power of Nika, the natural enemy of the world government, and Blackbeard had the Yami Yami no Mi, a power that literally attracts other devil powers. So Imu might see both of them not just as enemies by blood, but as dangerous because of their abilities too. And finally, Shanks. 2 years ago, he personally went to meet Whitebeard to tell him, "You need to stop Ace from going after Teach." That's a big deal. Shanks was seriously injured by Blackbeard in the past, so he clearly saw something in him, something dangerous. Maybe that fight made him realize the truth about Blackbeard's nature and his connection to Rocks. I know, Shanks probably doesn't have any memories of Rocks himself, like when he was alive and causing chaos, but there's a good chance he heard all about it later from the Roger Pirates. By the way, I actually put together the full breakdown on when exactly that battle between Shanks and Blackbeard might have happened. It's up on my Patreon page if you want to check it out. Next, let's take a look at Galeira, the name that came up in the conversation between Harald and Yaro. In kanji, it's written as Otsuchi Sendan, which basically means great or big hammer battle corps. It refers to a group of powerful giants who wield massive hammers. Now, this kanji for hammer actually showed up somewhere else in One Piece story before, in the description of the Clubber-Tamon. Remember that? He was described like this. The Clubber-Tamon is one of the legendary beings passed down among sailors. It's a fairy that only appears in the ships that are truly cherished. Basically, it's like the soul of the ship. It carries a kozuchi, which means wooden mallet or wooden hammer, and wears a sailor raincoat. It runs around the ship to warn the crew of incoming danger. So yeah, here we've got both wooden mallet, wooden hammer, and fairy being mentioned here. And if we are talking about fairy, we've got Leo from the Tontata tribe, and his signature move is the Tontata Combat Tail Hammer. That's literally him using his tail like a hammer in battle. So this brings up something interesting. I think there's strong connection between these Galeira, hammer-wielding giants, and the fairies who use their tails as hammers, all tying back to the legend of the Clubber-Tamon. Also, in the original Japanese, the pronunciation of Galeira is actually a bit different from Galeira Company. In Galeira Company, they use a long dash mark, here, this one, to stretch the vowel sound, so it's pronounced like Galeira. But in chapter 1154, it's spelled Galeira, with katakana I here. Galeira, instead of the long vowel mark. This one is Galeira. This one is Galeira. So the pronunciation becomes more Galeira. So that subtle difference might be Oda Sensei's way of distinguishing the two. The Galeira Company in the world of One Piece might actually be modeled after the Galeira, hammer-wielding giants group called Galeira. But by tweaking the spelling and pronunciation, Oda Sensei could be showing us that Galeira Company is a different group, maybe inspired by the Galeira, but still separate from the original. And actually, this kind of name pattern showed up in the few places in the One Piece. For example, Amazon Lily and Nefertari Lily. The word Amazon Lily uses a long vowel mark for lily, like lily. But the Queen Lily from the Nefertari family is written with regular vowels. Lily. That difference in spelling could mean Amazon Lily was actually named after Queen Lily. But it's not the exact same name, just a variation. Cobbler once mentioned that Queen Lily never returned to Alabasta after the Void Century. So what if after Joy Boy lost, she fled all the way to the Calm Belt and founded the new nation there? And considering she carried the D name, it's very possible she had ties to Joy Boy and his allies. Maybe even to the ancient mermaid princess? Since that princess could control Sea Kings, Queen Lily might have escaped with her help using the Sea Kings for protection and ended up hiding out in the Calm Belt. If that's the case, this scene makes sense. That might actually be how Amazon Lily or Women's Island came to be. Now let's talk about Karakuri Island. So far, there have actually been 2 islands called Karakuri Island in One Piece. One is the island where Frankie spent those 2 years training. That's once written in hiragana. The other shows up in Enel's space operation cover story. It's where Dr. Tsukimi lived. That one's written in katakana. Same name, but written differently. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's a big difference between these 2 islands. When Frankie was sent to his Karakuri Island 2 years ago, the climate there was clearly winter. It's a year-round winter island. That's why young Vegapunk even tried to invent a soul heater system to deal with the cold. But Enel's space operation cover story, the Karakuri Island we see doesn't look like a winter island at all. It looks more like Autumn Island. The setting clouds bamboo, the moon, and dango, which all scream autumn in Japanese culture. So what does that mean? It could mean they are 2 totally different islands that just happen to have the same name. Or maybe it's the same place, but shown at a completely different point in time. This is a cool part. Japanese uses 3 different writing systems, so tiny changes in how something written can give us the hints you'd never catch in a translation. That's why Japanese readers can pick up on little details like this that might be missed in other languages. And every week, when a new One Piece chapter drops, I break down and translate those kind of nuances from the native Japanese perspective. So if that sounds like your thing, come check it out. By the way, there were rumors that all giants from the Galeira fleet were frozen, and that probably refers to the giants we saw frozen at Punk Hazard. Since the world government been running gigantification experiments for centuries, it's likely those giants were frozen and then taken to Punk Hazard. And among Galeira group, the ones with ancient giants' blood might have been used as the subjects, those Punk Hazard giants we saw. One piece of evidence is Hacha, one of the numbers that Kaido supposedly bought from Punk Hazard. He's the only one whose age we know, and he's 188 years old. We still don't know much about the numbers, but if they were created in order by their names, that would mean guys like Imbi and Huga were made over 188 years ago. So it lines up pretty well with the idea that the Galeira giants were captured by the world government around that time. Now, let's wrap up by taking a look at what's going on in Elbaf. Harald declared that he wants to connect Elbaf to the rest of the world, aiming for the future where giants can live freely anywhere they want. That dream actually overlaps with the Otohime wanted for the fishmen, to be able to live peacefully on the surface. It really shows how, in the world of One Piece, many races have a history of wanting to coexist with humans, but not being able to. That mindset clearly influenced his son Hairudin too, who said, どんな人たちも同じ目線で見る。でかいだけで威張るな。I see everyone eye to eye and don't go acting all high and mighty just because you are big. And the keyword here is 同じ目線, seeing everyone eye to eye. It's interesting because it's the same kind of dream Big Mom had, wanting to have a tea parties with everyone at the same eye level. 同じ目線. In her case, she went about it in a forceful way by trying to literally make people bigger. But the real meaning of being 同じ目線 at the same eye level It's about connecting as equals, as fellow people, not about height or size. And One Piece has introduced a ton of different races, but personally, I don't think they were just naturally part of the world. I believe a lot of them were actually created on purpose by someone behind the scenes. If you are curious about that idea, check out the other video linked here. Behind the scenes, Loki was actually going through the really rough time back in Elbaf. His mother, Estherida, rejected him, calling him cursed. And his father, Harold, was always busy trying to build diplomatic ties with other countries, so he barely had time for Loki. On top of that, Loki kept provoking Hyrule more than necessary. He constantly claimed that Hyrule wasn't the rightful king's son, but honestly, it didn't seem like Loki actually cared about that. It feels more like he lashed out at Hyrule because Hyrule was loved by everyone. His mother, Ida, adored him, and the other kids around them looked up to Hyrule. Loki, on the other hand, was rejected by his own mother and treated like a cursed prince by everyone around him. Loki wasn't proud just he was born as prince. What he really wanted was just love. And we saw proof of that when he cried quietly to himself when no one was around. That's probably why he started admiring rocks. Everyone in Elbaf treated him like he was cursed, like a walking bad omen, but the Rocks pirates, they didn't come from Elbaf, so they treated him like anyone else. That simple act of being treated normally might have been enough for Loki to start trusting him. There's another thing. Loki even tried to take his own life once. He threw himself off toward the underworld, which mirrors what Kaido did when he jumped off Sky Island. And like Loki, Kaido has horns, so there's a good chance he inherited the blood of the ancient giants. That would explain how tough their bodies are. Do you remember this scene? Normal giants like Hyrule, Girth, Road were ready to die when they jumped from Sval to the underworld. But if Loki survived that fall, then ancient giants might have much sturdier bodies than we thought. Alright, so that wraps up my breakdown of chapter 1154, but there's still a lot I don't get to cover. Also, I'll be posting more videos on Dawn Dusk channel soon, so don't miss those either. And if you are interested in private Japanese lessons or want to work with me on translation projects, feel free to reach out to me via Instagram or email. Anyway, see you in the next video.